Hello, everybody. Welcome back to AWS Security Live, streaming to you live from AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. Here's where we get to talk about security, all things security, and solving some of those security challenges with our AWS partners. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ryan Orsi, in charge of a team here at AWS of partner specialists on security, identity, cloud operations, and I'm joined by another co-host.
Don't do it. Don't do it. This favorite co-host.
Favorite co-host.
I'm going to do it to myself.
But he didn't like it. The feeling was not reciprocated.
You know what? I'm going to say it. Ryan's my favorite co-host.
Thank you.
There it is.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Brian.
My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide head of security. What does it say down there? Security and Identity Partner Specialist, AWS. I'm cheating because I'm just going to read it off of the screen. But we work to help partners deliver positive security outcomes for AWS customers. How was that?
That sounds fun.
Awesome.
Sounds a fun job. How'd you get that?
We're not alone, Ryan.
We're not. Oh, hey. How are you, Will?
Hey,
I'm doing
there
good.
you are.
Doing good. So, favorite co-host. We're aiming for favorite guest host here.
Ooh,
it's
I
a
like
nice,
that.
Let's shoot for it. Well,
I like that.
Will from Vanta, you want to explain maybe to the audience that maybe doesn't know you quite yet who you are, what you do, what is Vanta all about?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Will. I lead the product platforms and growth teams here at Vanta. And at Vanta, we're a trust management platform. And the idea here is that we believe that security is the right way to build the great products of the future. But getting your arms wrapped around that from the beginning is not easy. It's a daunting task. So the idea of connecting security with an engine that will actually drive your business really makes a lot of sense. And we think that road goes through compliance, risk, and governance.
And
Absolutely.
I've heard you use the word trust before. So obviously, most every AWS partner that deals with security, one way or another, goes around Brian or I or our teams. But I've heard you talk about trust management. And obviously, that has like a connotation of confidence, right? Bringing people confidence in what is going on in their application, in their cloud environments. Maybe you want to start there and kind of like pull the thread from there.
Yeah, that's right. So think for a second that you're running a restaurant, okay?
Okay.
And one of the things you got to do to...
What kind of restaurant?
What do we like?
Oh, you know what?
I had a delicious chicken parm last night, man.
I'm a sucker for Italian food. It's in the blood. I just want spaghetti all the time.
That works. So we're running buongiornos over here, all right?
Yes,
we're trying to get it running.
I'm in.
One of the things we got to make sure that we do here is really two things. One, we want to make sure we don't poison our customers and all that. That's true, right? That's just straight up security. But also, in order to just open my restaurant, I got to make sure the fire marshal believes that if I got a grease fire, things are going to pass and things are good, right? So that's the difference between what we call sort of demonstrating trust versus being secure, right? Security is always a real-time thing. It always matters. It always makes sense. But at the same time, how do you prove to that customer? How do you prove to that partner that you're doing what you need to do to really protect their data, protect their usage? That's a whole different story, and that's what Vanta's really, really good at.
Oh, interesting. What's the evidence? Where's the potential health audit for your restaurant coming in one day?
Right. Health inspector, fire inspector, this kind of thing. In the security world, we happen to have frameworks like this that are sort of becoming standard across the board. For example, in North America, SOC 2 is very prevalent.
Gotcha.
ISO around the world, right?
Here we go.
You are.
He baited me.
You get a free pass. You get a free pass. We didn't
explain it to him. Okay, so free hall pass.
Yeah.
But on Security Live, we like to spell out acronyms before we use them. And if you say an acronym without spelling it out, you just got to pay the swear jar. You know, all that goes to Brian and I. It's our tip jar.
Also, any like business language. I don't even think this was supposed to be part of the rules. But if you're like, hey, synergy, then also
agile, cloud.
Agile, synergy, agile, cloud, something. It goes in the jar. You got
That's fair. You know what? I'm going to pay in advance, and I'm also going to trust. See, this is the important thing. If I broke down these acronyms, they'd be less useful than if I actually used the letters. So I'm going to stay with SOC 2 and ISO, but here's what you need to know. These are sort of a federated list of things, right? There are different organizations out there that say, look, we have a bunch of these different recommendations, these guidelines, so to speak, that show that you're proving to your customers that you're safe, right? And so in different regions of the world, different sort of industries and things like that, you might have different kinds of these frameworks. So for our conversation, we'll just use these two for now. But the idea is, in order to get through that, it's kind of like doing your taxes. It's pretty tough. And you remember the world of taxes before TurboTax, right? So many forms, so much paper, trying to go through and fill out every little thing, mapping it all together.
Lots of strange questions.
It's really tough.
Very confusing.
Yeah. So this is kind of like in the restaurant analogy, which I will ride that train to the end of the show.
Please do.
Is like the fire inspector says, hey, you have to have fire extinguishers, and in the old world it was like, hey, I got it, I got this, don't worry, I swear I've got this, and he goes, perfect, you're good to go. And now we're actually saying, here is the fire extinguisher, and then like beyond that, like squirt, squirt, here it actually works, right?
Yeah.
So is that kind of what you guys are doing, of like beyond just the attestation of like what we are saying that we're doing, you are able to actually say like, here it is in control, and here is like package delivered, promising that it is actually in place. Evidence.
That's right. And I'll build on what you just said with two things. One is, imagine a world of restaurants where only the top 1% of restaurants could get a fire marshal. Well, most people that are trying to open up a shawarma shack or just mom's spaghetti instead of buongiornos here would never be able to open, right?
Right.
Yet that is the world that we're in with enterprise software. Yeah. Most of these people, you know, you have to hire a PwC or KPMG, these big auditors, to go get this done. You've got screenshots and spreadsheets and months-long process to go make it happen. And listen, if you're a startup, you may be living or dying in the first year. How is this worth it to do it, right? But if you think about shrinking all of that, if you take months of work and turn it into weeks or even days, now you're actually in a position where more and more teams can say, early on, I'm a 10-person startup, but I get to work with Atlassian, or I get to work with AWS, or I get to work with Disney. You know, these giant organizations that need you to prove that you're safe, right?
How does one achieve what you just said, the weeks or months of kludgy evidence collection and gathering for maybe pre-compliance audit or full, oh boy, full audit?
Yep.
How does one get there with your product to get to that point of it's a lot less work for the people to do?
So I'm just going to acknowledge it for everyone out there. This is manual for most of you today. It's hard. There's somebody on staff that has an Excel spreadsheet open, and there are a million different links, and they're just trying to link it all together, right? And that's because when it comes to these kinds of audits to prove, just like a fire marshal visiting our restaurant, right?
Yep.
You need to do that over a period of time, and you need to collect all the proof. We call it collecting evidence, right? And so in order to do that, it's a crazy manual process. You log into every corner of AWS console, you snapshot every toggle that's on and right, and collect it all in one place. It's a full-time job for someone for months. So here's the alternative. Imagine that we're able to connect to your stack, connect to your cloud, and we're able to actually read what's going on, right? And the interesting thing is, cloud is absolutely critical for the startups that we work with, but we actually go beyond that at Vanta. We also think about the people that work in your organization. Want to make sure they're taking the right training, they're onboarded, offboarded correctly, et cetera. So Vanta has this unique opportunity to look across your business and make sure all of those things are both A, in the right place, and B, documented. So let's picture our restaurant again, and let's say we had a special robot that would just go around taking pictures of all of our systems, making sure they looked good, put it in a nice binder, hand it over to the fire marshal, did the work for us. That's what Vanta's doing for you in software.
That's amazing. I love that. And as someone who has actually been a part of like SOC 2 audit compliance, not as a compliance officer, but as someone who is involved in the SOC 2 process.
Were you the spreadsheet guy?
No, I was not. I was the person that the spreadsheet guy was supposed to track down and ask questions about. It's not just the responsibility of one person. There's so much cost to a business to collect those people, pull them away from their day jobs, ask them, when was the last time you changed your password, or whatever it is. There's so much work that happens across the business to collect that data. And so to be able to automate that and grab that data for provability is humongous. So on behalf of someone that has been through the pain, I just want to say thank you for making people's lives easier.
I want to double down on what you just said there, which is security is a team sport, right? We know this, but most software doesn't facilitate that. It is the one person, whoever that person was, trekking through the jungle of their company, hunting down, who's my DevOps person, who's my HR person, who's all these people to try to get the information they need. That's the other place where Vanta is really useful, because we lean into collaboration in day one and say, you know what, how do we meet all of these partners where they are? How do we go to Jira, or how do we go to a task tracker, or all these different areas where those people need to do their jobs, collect all that information, bring it back.
And in the old world, the Brian world.
Did you just call me old? What just happened?
I just said the world, not you particularly, but where that person is collecting this evidence, if you will, and they've trekked to the jungle of their company to find all the vendors they use and the user interfaces that are active in the companies and screenshotting configurations and exporting XML files to show for evidence. Then that person finds another job in their career and they move on. All that tribal knowledge just left the company. So tell me, how does Vanta keep up with configuration changes in the cloud?
Well, that's the beauty of what we've been talking about. You know, I will give it a term, and if I have to pay a coin in advance, I'll do it.
I love this idea. Will,
here's the term,
first one to like pre-deposit. He's like investing in ahead.
Well, you gave me the money, so this is nice, right? So we have a term here. We call it automated compliance. So what I just talked about, we're not just connecting to AWS once, right? We're connecting continuously as a system. We're listening, we're monitoring, we're making sure that things are safe first to produce that evidence that we talked about, right? So in other words, job number one, let's satisfy the fire marshal so we can even open our business. But the truth is, I should probably keep that running as my restaurant is running, make sure I'm never on fire, right? And so that's the evolution of where Vanta takes you, is you're able to go from a one-time, you know, we talked about taxes as another analogy. TurboTax is once a year, right? But monitoring your credit is all year. And so that's what Vanta allows you to do. These continuous rules that we're evaluating, we're letting the company know, hey, here's what's going well, here's what's not, here's what you have to resolve, and that actually keeps working regardless of who's shepherding it on a day-to-day basis.
And Will, one of the conversations that we had earlier was that customers, and this is a little bit of out of context, so work with me here, but we have customers that are trying to deploy generative AI environments, but are stalled because the data governance is saying, hey, it's cool that you built it, it looks like it works, but our data governance either isn't mature enough or won't allow us to deploy this to production. When it comes to the actual governance piece of what you do, are you finding that that's an accelerator to business actually like accelerating the business's ability to make spoons or be a financial institution, whatever that might be? Are you seeing that as an accelerator?
Well, it's a differentiator is what it is, right? In a world where increasingly AI is a service and not necessarily like an infrastructure that you build from
capability,
scratch, right? A, the leveling of the playing field is here, but B, that also means if anyone can do it, it starts lowering the rigor and the quality of what might be done, right? So who knows who's working with this, right? It could be called blah, blah, blah GPT. You're not really sure. So again, it comes back to that term we talked about, demonstrating trust. How do I show you that I've gone through the steps and I'm serious about this? AI literally is all about data. And so that's where we're actually seeing a lot of growth in our business, working with these companies that are pushing the cutting edge, right? And when you do that well, you come to your customers and say, look, it's not just capability that I'm delivering to you, it's actually my integrity as a business. You can trust me. That's very hard to find in the business.
I like how you started this conversation with trust, and we're just looping back around to trust. But I mean, Brian brought up a really hot topic, right? There's so much innovation happening with Bedrock, for example. Tens of thousands of people are pushing things out with Bedrock, and everything's different. Everything's unique. I love the innovation like curve that we're on right now as a whole culture here. But trusting that the access to different applications by employees is being watched and that they're adhering to compliance standards that company is subject to, and there's evidence to prove it. Am I over the target? Is that also something that people can rely on Vanta to help provide?
No, that's a great analogy. And look, we talked about going back in the past a little bit earlier, right? Let's picture ourselves back. Yeah, again, no shade thrown.
I'll just
take it for what it is.
Take that one out for you.
Look, I was here for this too, okay? Let's imagine 2008.
Did you watch movies in the mail?
100%.
Wow. Yes.
I was at Netflix when we went to streaming. So,
I love that.
That was part of my life. And look, you picture that world. You remember for a moment, suddenly the App Store opened and everyone had an app.
Yeah.
And most of those apps were just garbage, right? We're about to head into that world where the more ubiquitous we make these tools and more available, you really need to separate quality from quantity. And when everyone can do an AI thing, you really want to say, look, we are a business. We're actually here to help you thrive as my customer. I happen to use AI as a tool to make that happen. And so you have to actually talk about more than just the capability. You have to talk about the governance. You have to talk about the data. You have to talk about how you're really shepherding that customer all the way through, because implications are greater. They're handing you more and more information.
Absolutely. Hey, Wil, let's talk about the people that interact with Vanta's product.
Yes.
And when someone interacts with your products, obviously what you're doing behind the scenes, collecting, tracking the evidence for the fire marshal to trust that you are doing what you said you're doing. What about the workflow of that user behind your tool? Are there automations that they can even further simplify how they interact with the products, or where are you kind of seeing that go in the future? Is kind of what I'm asking as well.
Yeah, let me kind of give you maybe 3 quick patterns that we'll talk about. One is, picture our founders, right? Our 1 to 20 headcount companies that are really just getting up and running. You know, they're coming out of an accelerator, they're using AWS credits, they're trying to do their best. These are not security professionals. And so when you think about who they are, they're really trying to get to that revenue moment, and we're teaching them security along the way. That looks really different, right, than this idea of, as you start growing and scaling as a company, now you're starting to get those enterprise customers, and you're trying to work together with them. Right. Earlier, we talked about collaborating inside the company. Now you're also collaborating with customers and with auditors, trying to juggle all of that and make it work, right? It's not proactive anymore. You're really just trying to get that deal, right?
And to an early stage startup, that life cycle, that timeline is critical, right? To show business results behind their investors. Absolutely.
I would say I have been there as well, right? You have like your SOC 2 compliance, HIPAA, PCI, those large governance boards out there that are saying, hey, this is what good looks like.
This is for you.
I think I had like 8 in there. There's
feed me, Brian. I'm hungry.
I'm going to open the door and just shove them in.
This is from my stack. I'm getting short stacks, guys.
You know, but just you've got like the things that you expect, and then you've got these compliance moments that you don't expect, right? You're engaging with this customer, and the customer is, by the way, here is that 10,000 row spreadsheet that you need to fill out, and if you don't have this centralized, if you don't have this automated and the speed at which you can complete that, right, then you're in trouble. Now, time kills all deals. If you've ever been in sales, now you're extending your sales cycle, you're less likely to win that deal, and you have given everybody the fire drill within the company to try and figure this out.
Time kills all deals. I feel like you just made that up, but it's genius.
Brad Taylor, if you're watching, shout out to Brad Taylor. Time kills all deals. You heard it here second. Brad was first.
Amazing.
Sorry, that was a tangent, but
apologize.
Just the point being that
You're
like, let's avoid the fire drills. Let's get those deals because we have a centralized solution like yours to deliver.
That's exactly right. And so I promised you 3 archetypes. I'm going to give you the 3rd one.
Okay, I heard 2 patterns. What's the 3rd?
Right. So now we're kind of getting through this thing. We talked about compliance and trust. We're proving that. Now we're actually getting to the point where security really matters. Real-time security matters, right? And so it's less about getting that certification, less about that fire marshal. They're only going to come around once a year, but I need to make sure my restaurant doesn't burn down all year. Right? And so that's where these same monitors and these sort of mechanisms that we call tests, it has the logic in it, and it has that continuous checking. So we're actually making sure you're compliant on a continual basis. And you don't have to go through that first-time scramble that you did right in the beginning, right? So Brian, as you were mentioning, you know, this ability to say, you know what, let's go land that deal. True, that's really important. Second thing that's also really important is say, as a company, we're actually up on the latest and greatest, and our team is where it needs to be. And so as you start getting CISOs in the mix, heads of security in the mix, they actually need that operational dashboard. And the beauty of that, you know, we love our partners like CrowdStrike that was just up here before. We work very closely with them.
Awesome.
And folks like that look deeply into the cloud, that's important. But you also have to look across. And so that's what Vanta does that is really complementary, and why we actually work together so well, because we can understand what your employees are doing, what your devices are doing, what your cloud assets are doing, and sort of paint that picture across the board.
You all are doing noble work at Vanta, Wil.
We're doing our best.
We're very proud to be partnered with you. This is an incredibly important area of technology and governance risk compliance. Wil Pong from Vanta, thank you so much for joining us on Security Live, sir. You have taught us a new tactic for the swear jar, pre-pay in advance.
He hacked the system.
Yeah, folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Kyle Dickinson and Anne-Marie Woodburn of AWS.
All right.